Last week, I made my 700th one-of-a-kind art doll. 700 dolls, I can't even imagine what that looks like. Anyway, between doll number 1 and doll number 700, I feel like I've learned quite a lot. Not just about making dolls, but about myself as an artist, running a creative business, and about life in general. So today I want to share a few things I've learned along the way that might help you on your own doll making journey. Welcome to the Divergent Doll Maker podcast. The first one might sound obvious, but I think it's something we've all been guilty of at some point. And that is, if you compare yourself to others, you're always going to feel inferior. When you first start making dolls, the first thing you tend to do is go online and start looking for inspiration. It's natural to want to research different materials and styles and see what's possible. There are so many amazing doll artists out there. When you start looking at what people are making, it can be inspiring and exciting. So you go and buy a bunch of doll making materials and try and make something similar. And quite often it doesn't look the way you expect it to. The stuffing goes in all lumpy, the seams are puckered, the face is wonky, and you can't for the life of you figure out how to attach the hair and make it look natural. Other artists make it look so effortless, so why is it when you try the same technique, it just doesn't seem to work? The trouble is you're comparing your doll number 1 to their doll number 100 or 500 or 700. I can guarantee you all those artists you admire have gone through the exact same process and the exact same struggles you're going through now. They've spent years painstakingly researching and practicing different jointing techniques and face designs to get to where they are now. And you want to know a secret? Those doll artists still look at other artists and feel inadequate sometimes. No matter how experienced you are, if you compare your work to other people's, you're always going to feel like your dolls are no good. So what do you do about it? Should you work away in a bubble and never look at anyone else's work at all? I mean, you can do that, but on the whole, I think it's good to support other artists and be inspired to develop your own craft, as long as you keep in mind that those artists are on their own path, which might be very different to yours. And they're all at different stages in their own journeys. So start wherever you are, choose an area that you'd like to improve and work on making that bit better. Just making each doll 1% better than the last one. If you're having difficulty getting the stuffing even, just concentrate on getting that right for the next 10 or 20 dolls. And don't worry about the rest. Once you're happy with the stuffing, move on to improving something else, like the shape of the head or drawing the face. You'll feel like you're not making much progress, but when you look back in a year, you'll be amazed at how far you've come. Remember, you're not in competition with anyone else. You're competing with yourself and getting a little bit better with every doll you make. The faces on my dolls have always been quite simple and stylised, and that's a conscious choice. They have button eyes with a bit of shading around them, some swirly sort of eyeliner designs around the edges, and a simple line for a mouth with a smudge of colour underneath. I can draw detailed faces, but for my dolls I choose not to. And the reason for that is another thing that I've learned, which is complicated isn't always better. You might think that for people to appreciate the work that goes into your dolls, you have to make them technically complex with lots of detail. Sometimes you can convey everything you need to with a few simple lines. If that's the case, then don't force it. Don't feel like you need to add lots of colours and details if that doesn't resonate with you. There are some awesome doll artists out there who make very realistic looking dolls, but not everyone likes the same thing. So there's room for every artist to express themselves in a way that feels authentic to them. When I started doll making, I didn't really understand why I drew faces the way I did. I wasn't following a trend or taking an easy option. I just felt like that's how a doll should look. Looking back now with hindsight, knowing I'm autistic, it makes total sense. When I'm face to face with someone having a conversation, I don't process facial expressions the same way a neurotypical person would. I don't really do eye contact, so I'm usually looking at the mouth and trying to process what they're saying. The position of their eyebrows or nose means absolutely nothing to me. I learn each person's individual expressions and communication styles from scratch, so if I don't know you, I can't read your face. I probably won't even remember what you look like until we've had at least a couple of conversations. I read a lot more into someone's general body language than I do micro expressions, so it never made sense to me to put lots of expressive detail into a doll's face. I became fascinated by the ways you can convey emotion with a small tilt of the head or a curve at the corner of the mouth. The simplicity gives my dolls a sort of vulnerability and cute factor, and it turns out that other people seem to like that too. I started getting comments from people saying how they could feel the emotions of my dolls. People give them personalities and stories, which I think is really cool. Art can be used to tell a clearly defined story, or it can inspire a story in the mind of the viewer, and I think either of those options is equally valid. One of the hardest things to deal with when you start sharing your work with other people online or at craft fairs is that people will have opinions about your work, and some people will love to tell you exactly what they think. When you've put your heart and soul into a project, it can be heartbreaking when somebody comes along and laughs at it or calls your work silly or ugly. Not everyone will like or understand your work, and that's okay. My dolls have been called everything from overpriced toys to demonic monstrosities. And you know what? I just find it really funny now because I like the dolls I make. If somebody else doesn't like them, that's okay. Those people aren't my ideal customers. Now when I get a comment that says they can see the evil in my doll's eyes and I'm going to go to hell unless I repent, I sort of want to screenshot it and put it up on my website as a review. Seriously though, my dolls aren't made for them, so it doesn't matter what they think. The right people will love what you make, even if it's not perfect, because they'll see the love and the passion that's gone into making it. Not everyone likes dolls. Some people are creeped out by them. Some people can't understand why an adult would want to collect art dolls. They're perfectly entitled to their opinion, but it doesn't make them an authority on the subject. So what a random stranger on the internet thinks of my work doesn't affect me in the slightest. Unless they're saying how much they adore my dolls, those comments always make me feel warm and fuzzy. Over time, you'll find your tribe. I still get comments now from people who supported me back when I started out. I recognise the names, I know who you are, and I'm always happy to see you. Having a niche market is actually a big advantage. If you make something that thousands of other people are making and try selling it on Etsy, your work gets lost in a sea of other items that all look similar. If you're making something a little bit different, you'll stand out. People who stand out are always going to be a target for trolls and those who want to put others down for fun. It also makes it a lot easier to find an audience who really get what you're trying to do. And that audience, your tribe, will still be there in 5 or 10 or 20 years. When you do find your tribe, sometimes you can start to worry that if you're making the same sort of thing over and over again, your customers might get bored. Can you really keep making the same style of doll year after year and still keep people interested? Or are you going to wake up one day and find that you've completely run out of ideas and you've got nothing new to offer? Well, another thing I've learned after making 700 art dolls is that if you stay curious and keep developing your skills, your work will keep evolving and you'll never run out of new ideas. Being creative means you keep discovering new paths that inspire your work. So one year you might be very inspired by nature and the natural world around you, and the next year you might discover astronomy and start being inspired by the stars. When I first started making one-of-a-kind art dolls, I decided that each doll would have a unique name. A few years down the line, I remember someone saying to me, "You must be scraping the bottom of the barrel for names now." And I was like, nope, still plenty more where those came from. I've been doing this for 13 years now, so I often have to check back through my records to make sure I'm not repeating a name, and sometimes it can be a little bit tricky, but I still always manage to come up with a new, unique name for each doll. The same principle goes for the actual dolls you make as well as the names. When you're continually exploring new techniques and materials, you'll keep discovering new ways of putting things together, and your dolls will evolve over time. 10 years down the line, you'll have an overarching style that'll run through your work, but the dolls you create will be totally different to the ones you're making now. And I promise you, you'll still wake up some days and think, "Oh, I wonder why I've never made that before." Now, that's not to say that you won't feel creatively stuck sometimes. Burnout can be a major issue for creative professionals. If you're constantly giving and giving and giving, you're going to reach the point where you feel like you just don't have any creativity left in you. But that doesn't mean it's gone forever. It just means you need to rest and recharge your creative battery. You can't keep giving forever without taking. Finding things that inspire you is so important. That can come from art, but it could also be from reading fantasy books, going for walks on the beach, listening to music, or just having fun in the park with your kids. The important thing is that you find time to do the things that bring you joy and keep kindling that creative spark. I think my progress as a doll artist has been quite slow and steady over the years since I started. There have been times when I've been making dolls prolifically and times when I've had to step back for a while and look after my mental health. There's no doubt I've come a very long way since I picked up my first doll making book, but I still feel like there's a lot more I want to learn. As I've said before in some of my videos, I feel like there's a lot more I could do with my doll's clothes, for example. But my skills aren't quite there yet, so I want to work on dressmaking. I'd also like to develop some of the joints I use, which means reworking some parts of the pattern, like the head and the body shape. Clay dolls are something I tried a few years back, and I'd love to have another go at making those at some point if I had the space. So I think the most important thing I've learned is that you never actually stop learning. You don't wake up one day and think, I've made it. Even if you did learn everything there is to know about doll making, new technology and materials are coming out all the time. So I don't think you could ever possibly sit back and say, that's it, I know everything there is to know about making dolls. Doll making is such a broad and varied art form. There's always going to be something new you can learn. I was watching a video by an illustrative artist recently. I think it was Duchess Celestia. Anyway, she was saying that you don't have to be an expert to be a professional artist. Being a professional artist means you create art as a job and get paid for it. It doesn't mean you know everything. And I think that's totally relevant for most, if not all, art forms. It's certainly true for doll making. Thanks so much for listening. If you're watching on YouTube, I'm going to put a video up on screen now that you're going to find really helpful if you're getting started on doll making, but don't have a lot of cash to spare. Go check that one out now, and I'll see you next time. Bye.